What if the greatest sci-fi films were the ones nobody saw? While Star Wars and Avatar broke box office records, these 15 masterpieces crashed and burned financially. Films so ahead of their time, audiences weren't ready. Movies that lost millions but changed cinema forever. Number 1. Blade Runner, 1982. Ridley Scott's neon-drenched nightmare about synthetic humans questioning their humanity landed with a thud so loud you could hear studio executives screaming across Hollywood. Opening against E.T., this dark meditation on what makes us human earned a pathetic $32 million against its $30 million budget. Critics called it slow, confusing, and pretentious. Audiences walked out baffled. Yet look at that incredible visual DNA. Every cyberpunk film, game, and novel since owes a debt to those rain-soaked streets and towering ziggurats. The production design by Lawrence G. Paul and Sid Mead created a Los Angeles 2019 that still feels possible decades later. A polluted, multicultural, corporate-dominated hellscape where the sun never shines and advertisements cover every surface. The troubled production almost destroyed Scott's career. 7 different versions exist because the studio demanded changes, including that awful voiceover narration Harrison Ford reportedly recorded while deliberately sounding bored. The infamous happy ending was cobbled together using outtakes from The Shining's opening credits. Over decades, Blade Runner transformed from failure to cornerstone, influencing everything from Ghost in the Shell to The Matrix. Film schools teach it as essential cinema. Ridley Scott finally got his definitive cut in 2007, vindicating his original vision. When Denis Villeneuve made the sequel in 2017, it too bombed financially despite critical acclaim, proving some visions are too powerful for mass consumption. In Hollywood's darkest irony, the film about artificial beings designed with built-in termination dates has outlived almost everything released that year. Number 2. The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter's masterpiece of paranoia and practical effects didn't just fail at the box office, it was absolutely slaughtered. Released 2 weeks after E.T., this Antarctic nightmare about a shape-shifting alien grossed a pitiful $19.6 million against its $15 million budget, effectively ending Carpenter's relationship with major studios. Critics eviscerated it, with Roger Ebert calling it a geek show, a gross-out movie. The special effects by Rob Bottin were so disturbing that makeup legend Stan Winston was brought in to help when Bottin was hospitalized from exhaustion. That Spiderhead sequence, nightmares for days, those dog kennel scenes, pure terror using mechanical puppets, hydraulics, and good old-fashioned slime. No CGI, just twisted artistry that still horrifies viewers today. Universal Pictures was so disappointed they reportedly blamed Carpenter for the failure, and his career never fully recovered. Studio executive Sidney Sheinberg even suggested they shoot a happy ending where the alien befriends the scientists. Thankfully, Carpenter refused. The film's resurrection began on home video, where horror fans discovered its claustrophobic brilliance. Kurt Russell's MacReady became an icon of rugged, flawed heroism, and that ambiguous ending sparked decades of debate. Did the alien survive? Who was infected? Modern directors from Quentin Tarantino to Jordan Peele cite it as a primary influence. The Thing now consistently ranks among the greatest horror and sci-fi films ever made, with annual screenings at research stations in Antarctica during their first winter night. A spectacular failure transformed into cultural cornerstone, proving sometimes the most brilliant films are the ones initially rejected by audiences unwilling to face their darkness. Number 3. Brazil, 1985. Terry Gilliam's dystopian masterpiece almost didn't see daylight thanks to one of Hollywood's most infamous studio battles. Universal Pictures chairman Sid Sheinberg hated Gilliam's bleak 142-minute cut so much he created his own 94-minute Love Conquers All version with a happy ending. Gilliam responded by taking out a full-page ad in Variety asking Sheinberg, "When are you going to release my film Brazil?" The Maverick director then secretly screened his version for Los Angeles film critics who named it Best Picture before it was even released. This retro future dystopia cost $15 million and made back a pathetic $9.9 million in America. A financial disaster that studios pointed to as proof that creative freedom was too risky. What makes Brazil so exceptional is its world building. Paper-choked bureaucracy, plastic surgery gone mad, terrorist bombings treated as minor inconveniences, and ductwork everywhere. Gilliam created a future that looked backward, using 1940s fashion and technology rather than sleek sci-fi aesthetics. Robert De Niro appears as a rogue heating engineer who breaks into homes to fix them, without proper paperwork. Jonathan Pryce's Sam Lowry dreams of escaping his mundane existence while being crushed by a system where every error is blamed on faulty paperwork. The film's interrogation scenes were so disturbing that Gilliam's own crew questioned him about their intensity. Brazil has since become the definitive cinematic statement on bureaucracy run amok. Film schools teach it alongside Orwell and Kafka. Its influence stretches from 12 Monkeys to Black Mirror, proving that Gilliam's nightmarish vision wasn't just ahead of its time, it was prophetic. Number 4. Dark City, 1998. Before The Matrix rewired our brains, Alex Proyas delivered this mind-bending neo-noir about a man who discovers his entire reality is an alien experiment. New Line Cinema botched the release so badly they made the trailer reveal the entire mystery and forced Proyas to add an opening narration that spoiled the film's central twist. The result? A catastrophic $14.5 million domestic gross against a $27 million budget. The film's production design is nothing short of miraculous. Every building, street, and prop was constructed to create a city perpetually shrouded in darkness. A 1940s noir landscape that could fold and reshape itself nightly while its inhabitants slept. The tuning sequences where buildings morph and streets rearrange remain breathtaking visual achievements, created with practical miniatures rather than pure CGI. Roger Ebert championed Dark City as the best film of 1998, even recording a commentary track for the DVD release. Yet mainstream audiences largely ignored it, only for The Matrix to use similar philosophical concepts and even some of the same sets just 1 year later to massive success. The villain, played with chilling perfection by Richard O'Brien, leads a group of bald, pale aliens called the Strangers, who wear identical black trench coats, visual inspirations that clearly influence The Matrix's agents. The director's cut released in 2008 removed the opening narration and restored Proyas's original vision, cementing the film as one of science fiction's most underappreciated masterpieces. Today, filmmakers from Christopher Nolan to Rian Johnson cite Dark City as a formative influence, proving that true cinematic visions eventually find their audience, even if it takes decades. Number 5. Sunshine, 2007. Danny Boyle's stunning space thriller about a mission to reignite our dying sun with a nuclear payload cost Fox Searchlight $50 million, but earned back a miserable $32 million worldwide. Critics were split, viewers stayed home, and this visual masterpiece vanished from theaters faster than light through space. The film's first two-thirds are pure hard sci-fi brilliance. The spacecraft Icarus II is a marvel of realistic design, featuring a massive golden shield to protect it from solar radiation. Boyle consulted with CERN scientist and physicist Brian Cox to create one of cinema's most scientifically plausible space missions. The sequence where Kappa must choose between saving his crew or completing the mission remains one of the most gut-wrenching ethical dilemmas in sci-fi history. To prepare the cast, Boyle had them live together in a student dormitory and fly in a zero-gravity simulator. He even made them watch Das Boot to understand the psychological pressure of confined spaces. The film's stunning visuals weren't just CGI magic. Cinematographer Alwyn Kuchler used real-light effects by shining 21K spotlights directly at the camera through tiny pinpricks. Many point to the third-act shift into slasher territory as the film's downfall. Screenwriter Alex Garland defended this controversial choice, arguing that staring at the sun would drive anyone mad. The divisive ending didn't stop Christopher Nolan from citing sunshine as a direct influence on Interstellar. What began as a financial disaster has transformed into a cult classic regularly screened at science institutes and film festivals. Sunshine's meditation on human significance against the cosmos remains powerful enough to burn through initial disappointment and find its place among the stars. Number 6. Children of Men, 2006. Alfonso Cuarón's devastating portrait of a world without children cost Universal $76 million, but earned back just $70 million worldwide, barely breaking even after marketing costs. Released during the crowded 2006 holiday season, this bleak masterpiece was essentially dumped by its studio despite universal critical acclaim. The film's technical achievements alone should have guaranteed box office success. Those legendary single-take sequences weren't just showing off, they were immersing viewers in a broken world where hope arrives in miraculous bursts. The 6-minute unbroken battle scene where Theo navigates a refugee camp under attack required months of preparation and technological innovation. Blood literally splattered onto the camera lens, and Cuarón kept it in. To create 2027 Britain, Cuarón didn't build futuristic sets. Instead, he showed our world gone to seed. London streets filled with garbage, abandoned schools, and propaganda everywhere. The film's background details reveal a society in collapse. Caged animals at Battersea Power Station, the Ark of Art storing humanity's treasures, and quiet as suicide kits advertised on television. Cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki used desaturated colors and natural lighting to create a documentary feel. No blue skies appear until the very end, a deliberate choice to show a world dying alongside human fertility. Although it earned 3 Oscar nominations, Children of Men was largely forgotten until the mid-2010s, when critics and filmmakers began hailing it as one of the century's greatest achievements. Its influence appears everywhere, from The Last of Us to Blade Runner 2049. Steven Spielberg called it a perfect film, and George Miller said it made him rethink how to shoot Mad Max. Fury Road. This commercial failure transformed into a prophetic vision of our present rather than our future. Proving true masterpieces don't just predict tomorrow, they diagnose today. Number 7. Cloud Atlas, 2012. The Wachowskis and Tom Tykwer created a time-spanning epic so ambitious, most of Hollywood refused to finance it. The directing trio had to secure independent funding from Asian investors after 5 studios rejected the project. The result? A $146 million production that earned just $130 million worldwide, becoming one of the most expensive independent films ever made, and one of the most fascinating failures. Based on David Mitchell's unfilmable novel, Cloud Atlas connects 6 stories across 500 years, from a 19th-century sailing ship to a post-apocalyptic Hawaii, with actors playing multiple roles across time periods. Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, Hugh Grant, and others appear in heavy makeup as different genders and ethnicities, RIEC. Controversial choice that sparked accusations of yellowface while the directors defended it as essential to the reincarnation theme. The production was so complex it required 2 full units shooting simultaneously on different continents. The Wachowskis handled the 1849, 2144, and post-apocalyptic segments, while Tykwer shot the 1936, 1973, and 2012 stories. They created a 172-minute visual symphony where scenes cut across centuries based on emotional resonance rather than chronology. Roger Ebert awarded it 4 stars, calling it one of the most ambitious films ever made, while others dismissed it as pretentious nonsense. Its Oscar nominations for makeup, visual effects, and score couldn't save it from commercial disaster. Yet something remarkable happened. International audiences, particularly in China and Russia, embraced its complex narrative. Film schools now teach Cloud Atlas as both a cautionary tale about overambition and a textbook example of innovative cross-cutting techniques. A box office bomb has slowly transformed into a cult classic that rewards multiple viewings, proving that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that refuse to be easily digestible. Number 8. Tron, 1982. Disney nearly destroyed itself trying to pioneer computer graphics with this ahead-of-its-time digital adventure. Costing $17 million, Tron earned back just $33 million, considered a major disappointment for the struggling studio. Even worse, the Academy disqualified it from visual effects. Oscar consideration because they considered using computers cheating. The revolutionary production required techniques that didn't exist yet. Director Steven Lisberger and his team had to invent a whole new filmmaking language. Those glowing suits? Actors performed on completely black sets wearing white costumes, which were then painstakingly hand-colored frame by frame. The computer sequences required massive mainframes that took 20-30 hours to render a single minute of footage. Disney executives were so confused by the film, they essentially sabotaged its release, providing minimal marketing and alienating their traditional audience. The studio had expected another Star Wars and instead got a philosophical meditation on the relationship between programs and their users. Jeff Bridges, who played both programmer Kevin Flynn and his digital counterpart Clue, reportedly spent hours discussing Eastern philosophy with Lisberger between takes. The light cycle sequence, now iconic, was originally supposed to be just 30 seconds long but was expanded when test audiences went wild for it. Though initially dismissed as style over substance, Tron's influence grew exponentially as technology caught up to its vision. The film predicted virtual reality, open-source software, artificial intelligence, and digital avatars decades before they existed. Silicon Valley programmers cited as a primary inspiration, with Steve Jobs saying Tron showed him what computers could ultimately become. When Disney finally released the sequel Tron Legacy in 2010, it grossed $400 million worldwide, vindicating a visionary film that, like its digital hero, needed to wait for the real world to reboot. Number 9. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984. This gonzo sci-fi comedy about a neurosurgeon rock star test pilot who battles interdimensional aliens baffled executives so completely that the marketing department simply gave up. 20th Century Fox dumped it into theaters with minimal promotion, where it earned a pathetic $6.2 million against its $12 million budget. Director W.D. Richter and writer Earl McRauch created a universe so detailed it felt like viewers had walked into the fifth sequel of an established franchise. Characters reference past adventures that never existed in other films. The movie begins in the middle of Buckaroo's story and never stops to explain itself, featuring alien lectroids from Planet 10, a dimension-traveling oscillation overthruster, and the evil Dr. Emilio Lizardo. The cast is ridiculously stacked with talent. Peter Weller as Buckaroo, Ellen Barkin, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd, and Clancy Brown as members of Buckaroo's team. Each actor was given a complete backstory for their character that never made it into the final film. The movie famously ends with a sequel coming soon promise for Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League that never materialized due to the financial failure. When asked why the film flopped, producer David Begelman reportedly said, "I don't understand one fucking thing about this movie." Despite its commercial failure, Buckaroo Banzai developed such a devoted cult following that NASA scientists named an asteroid after the character. The film's bizarre blend of quantum physics, rock and roll, and alien invasion has influenced everything from Men in Black to Rick and Morty. Director Wes Anderson has cited its deadpan weirdness as a major influence. A magnificent failure too smart, too weird, and too unapologetically itself to succeed in Reagan's America, but absolutely perfect for today's geek-dominated culture. Number 10. Artificial Intelligence, 2001. Steven Spielberg's controversial completion of Stanley Kubrick's dream project divided audiences and critics while underperforming at the box office. Costing $100 million, AI earned $235 million worldwide, seemingly profitable until you factor in marketing costs and the sky-high expectations for a Spielberg summer release. The film's troubled genesis is legendary. Kubrick developed the project for nearly 20 years, eventually deciding the technology wasn't advanced enough for his vision. He handed the project to Spielberg shortly before his death, creating a cinematic fusion of two completely opposite directorial sensibilities. Kubrick's cold perfectionism clashed with Spielberg's emotional humanism, resulting in a film that feels deliberately fractured. Haley Joel Osment delivered an astonishing performance as David, the robot boy programmed to love but never accepted as real. His journey through a drowning world where humans hunt mecha for sport contains some of cinema's most disturbing imagery, particularly the flesh fair sequence where robots are destroyed for entertainment. The controversial ending with the advanced beings and the recreated mother divided viewers. Many assumed this was Spielberg adding a happy ending to Kubrick's bleaker vision, but Spielberg insisted it was actually Kubrick's intended finale. The 2,000-year time jump and the mother who can only live for a single day create a conclusion that's actually far more devastating than it initially appears. Critics have reevaluated AI over time, with many now considering it among both directors' finest achievements. Its exploration of artificial consciousness and what it means to be human has only grown more relevant in our age of advancing AI. Christopher Nolan has cited it as a major influence, calling it the most underrated film of the past 20 years. This box office disappointment gradually revealed itself to be exactly what its protagonist was, something more profound than initially recognized. Number 11. Gattaca, 1977. Andrew Niccol's elegant thriller about genetic discrimination arrived in theaters DOA, earning a disastrous $12.5 million against its $36 million budget. Columbia Pictures had no idea how to market this cerebral sci-fi film with minimal action, releasing it with a confusing campaign that made it look like a conventional thriller. Audiences stayed away in droves. What they missed was one of science fiction's most prescient visions. Gattaca's world of genetic engineering, where DNA determines destiny, feels increasingly possible as CRISPR technology advances. The film's production design is a masterclass in retrofuturism, sleek 1950s aesthetics, vintage cars converted to electric, and modernist architecture, creating a world that feels both familiar and disturbingly different. Ethan Hawke's Vincent Freeman is a godchild born naturally in a world where designer babies are the norm. His deception to enter the space program by using Jude Law's genetically perfect but paralyzed Jerome's DNA involves daily rituals of collecting hair, blood, and urine samples. The scene where Vincent meticulously vacuums his work keyboard to remove any trace DNA is both mundane and terrifying. Scientists have praised Gattaca's accuracy and foresight. NASA once named it the most scientifically plausible sci-fi film ever made. Even more impressive, the film contains almost no computer-generated effects. Everything was achieved through lighting, costume design, and location shooting. Though ignored on release, Gattaca has become required viewing in bioethics classes and film schools alike. Its exploration of what makes us human beyond our genetic code resonates more strongly every year. The film's title, composed entirely of the letters used to label DNA nucleotides, symbolizes how clever and thoughtful this commercial failure truly was. Sometimes the most important cinematic warnings are the ones audiences aren't ready to hear. Number 12. Southland Tales, 2006. Richard Kelly's sprawling post-apocalyptic satire was booed at Cannes and then essentially buried by its distributor. Sony Pictures Classics acquired it for $7 million, then released it in just 63 theaters where it earned a pitiful $374,000. Critics were merciless, with Roger Ebert calling it a mess that's not even a hot mess. Made with a $17 million budget after Kelly's surprise hit Donnie Darko, Southland Tales presents an alternate reality where nuclear attacks on Texas have led to a dystopian America with energy shortages, constant surveillance, and a resistance movement planning revolution during the 2008 presidential election. The film's ambition is staggering. Kelly cast against type with The Rock, pre-superstardom, playing an amnesiac action star Sarah Michelle Gellar as a porn star talk show host, and Justin Timberlake as a scarred Iraq veteran who narrates the film while participating in a bizarre drug-fueled musical number to The Killer's All These Things That I've Done. Kelly originally conceived it as part of a massive multimedia experience, including graphic novels that were essential to understanding the plot. The theatrical cut was trimmed from its original 160-minute Cannes version to 144 minutes, removing crucial context and making an already complex narrative nearly incomprehensible. What seemed like an incoherent mess in 2006 has gradually revealed itself as a prophetic vision of America's political and cultural fracturing. Its themes of surveillance, celebrity worship, energy crises, and political extremism feel eerily accurate to our current moment. Scenes featuring militia members storming federal buildings seem pulled from recent headlines. Critics have begun re-evaluating Southland Tales as a flawed masterpiece ahead of its time. Kelly continues trying to complete his full vision with a new cut plan that may finally reveal whether this commercial disaster was actually a misunderstood warning about America's future. Number 13. Snowpiercer, 2013. Bong Joon-ho's English-language debut about class warfare aboard a train circling a frozen Earth was nearly buried alive by Harvey Weinstein. The notorious producer demanded 20 minutes of cuts to make it more accessible to American audiences. Bong refused, resulting in the film being dumped into just 8 theaters in the U.S., earning only $4.6 million domestically against its $40 million budget. The film's international performance saved it, with worldwide grosses reaching $86 million, but American audiences largely missed this dystopian masterpiece until it hit streaming platforms. Those who found it discovered one of the most visceral metaphors for inequality ever committed to film: a one-to-one car train where the poor live in squalor at the back while the elite enjoy decadence at the front. Chris Evans shed his Captain America persona to play Curtis, the reluctant revolutionary leading the tail section passengers forward. The protein block they're fed turns out to be processed cockroaches, a revelation that makes the earlier scene where a man has his arm frozen and shattered as punishment even more horrifying. Each train car represents a different social stratum, with production design growing more elaborate and surreal as they move forward. The scene where children receive bizarre propaganda from Alison Pill's manic teacher reveals how indoctrination perpetuates inequality. Tilda Swinton's grotesque Minister Mason with false teeth and exaggerated Yorkshire accent delivers the film's most chilling line, "Know your place, keep your place." The battle scenes in narrow train corridors are claustrophobic nightmares, with the night vision axe fight standing as one of cinema's most innovative action sequences. Bong Joon-ho would later win multiple Oscars for Parasite, which explores similar themes of class division. Snowpiercer's commercial failure in America says less about the film and more about a distribution system that nearly destroyed a masterpiece for being too challenging, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary art is the kind the system tries to derail. Number 14. Speed Racer, 2008. The Wachowski sisters delivered a candy-colored racing epic that cost Warner Brothers $120 million, but earned back just $93 million worldwide. Critics savaged it upon release, with the New York Times calling it ear-splitting and mind-numbing. Audiences largely stayed away, killing the planned franchise before it could leave the starting line. What they missed was a revolutionary visual experience. The Wachowskis didn't just adapt the anime, they translated its entire aesthetic into live action. The film's digital backlot technique layered flat images to create a 2.5D world where everything feels simultaneously real and cartoon-like. Those impossible racetracks with cars defying physics weren't just exciting, they were a completely new visual language. John Goodman and Susan Sarandon brought surprising emotional depth as Speed's parents, while young Emile Hirsch committed fully to the earnest tone. The 135-minute runtime embraces the source material's melodrama while adding genuine heart about family loyalty versus corporate corruption. The Wachowskis built actual car shells on gimbal rigs surrounded by green screens, putting their actors through physical challenges while creating a world that existed nowhere except in computers. The Thunderhead race sequence alone took over a year to design and animate. Critics have gradually reassessed Speed Racer as ahead of its time, a precursor to the vibrant color palettes of Thor, Ragnarok, and the hyperkinetic editing that dominates modern blockbusters. Edgar Wright has called it a masterpiece that was unfairly maligned, and Christopher Nolan cited its innovative visual effects as groundbreaking. The film has developed a passionate cult following, with annual screenings at the Museum of the Moving Image and Film Schools teaching it as a case study in digital aesthetics. Speed Racer wasn't just an adaptation, it was an entirely new cinematic vocabulary that audiences weren't ready for. Like the Wachowskis' earlier failure Cloud Atlas, it represents ambitious filmmaking that refused to compromise, even if it meant crashing commercially. Number 15. Dredd, 2012. Pete Travis's ultra-violent reboot of Britain's iconic comic book lawman was a box office disaster of epic proportions. Costing $45 million to produce, it earned a catastrophic $35 million worldwide, killing hopes for a planned trilogy before Judge Dredd could even remove his helmet. What made this failure particularly bitter was that Dredd got everything right that the 1995 Sylvester Stallone version got wrong. Carl Urban's Dredd never removes his helmet, staying true to the comics. The world-building focuses on one massive tower block called Peach Trees rather than attempting to show all of Mega City 1, and the violence is unflinchingly brutal, earning an R rating that limited its commercial potential but thrilled hardcore fans. The plot centers on Dredd and rookie Judge Anderson fighting their way up a 200-story slum controlled by drug lord Ma-Ma. The narcotic slow-mo allows users to experience reality at 1% normal speed, creating stunning visual sequences where violence unfolds in gorgeous, terrible slow motion as blood droplets shimmer like rubies in the air. Screenwriter Alex Garland reportedly took over direction when Travis left in post-production, though he remains uncredited. The film's gritty, contained story was partly due to budget constraints, but this limitation created a focused, relentless thriller that never wastes a frame. Critics praised the film's lean storytelling and commitment to the source material, but a minimal marketing budget and audience confusion with the previous Stallone version doomed it commercially. The film has since developed such a passionate cult following that annual Day of Dread campaigns for a sequel continue years later. Urban remains so committed to the character he's repeatedly stated he would return for a Netflix or streaming continuation. This spectacular failure has gradually become a template for how to adapt difficult material without compromising, proving sometimes the law of the box office isn't the only judgment that matters. What makes a box office bomb transform into a beloved classic? Is it vision too pure for mass consumption, or simply bad luck and poor marketing? Which of these forgotten masterpieces surprised you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us which financial disaster you think deserves more recognition. Because in the world of sci-fi, commercial failure often means you've created something truly revolutionary, and sometimes the films rejected today become the classics that define tomorrow.